Welcome back everybody, I'm Nick930 and this is my review for the recently released Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is a first-person shooter game, created by Gearbox and published by 2K Games. Just like the previous entries to the series, players will need to venture out into unique worlds filled with alien creatures and crazy masked bandits, and then proceed to blast them away with an insanely large arsenal of weapons, all while leveling up and increasing the power of their chosen character. But this time around, Gearbox has made several improvements to the formula, with significantly larger worlds, a more robust campaign, and an even more exhaustive collection of weapons to play with. It's easily one of the more ambitious titles in the series so far, though unfortunately there are quite a few technical issues and questionable design choices throughout. So to help break it all down, let's first start by taking a spoiler-free look at the story. Borderlands 3 takes place several years after the events of Borderlands 2 and Telltale's spin-off Tales from the Borderlands, where it's revealed that the apocalyptic wasteland planet Pandora is not the only planet in the star system that contains a powerful secret vault. To help track down these other vaults, the Crimson Raiders elicit the aid of a new band of vault hunters. The player controls one of these 4 vault hunters, each offering their own distinct visual appearance and gameplay functionality, along with their own unique automatic dialogue responses to other NPCs. Though the player's choice in the character doesn't seem to impact the story in any major way. After arriving on Pandora, the Vault Hunters then find that the Crimson Raiders are under attack by a vicious cult of bandits called the Children of the Vault. This cult, led by the deranged Calypso twins, are also searching for the vaults, and the story quickly turns into a desperate race to find the vaults before they do. The overall plot isn't bad, and still features plenty of that Borderlands humor that the series has become known for, though I do feel as though the villainous Calypso twins are a missed opportunity. The twins are based heavily around the live streaming culture, and they often say things like and subscribe after their inappropriate murderous broadcast to try and parody it. This type of parody just comes off as really forced and doesn't feel organic at all, almost as if the writer doesn't really understand what they're trying to make fun of, and the end result is a pair of villains that pale in comparison to the fan favorite Handsome Jack. The main missions themselves are still fairly enjoyable, with plenty of your typical Borderlands humor coupled with hidden tape recordings to help expand on the lore. The pacing feels excellent this time around, with just enough main story missions per world to avoid feeling repetitive. The side missions, on the other hand, do feel incredibly tedious. I understand that the Borderlands series has never tried to take itself too seriously, but it doesn't change the fact that most of the side missions involve running back and forth grabbing garbage for various characters. You're either grabbing someone's lunch, finding someone's lost underwear, or literally fetching coffee for someone. Of course, each of these side activities involves shooting tons of enemies along the way, but the general premise behind each mission does seem pretty pointless. It just feels like annoying filler, rather than an opportunity to explore more of the environments like they should be. Though, that being said, these annoying side missions are excusable thanks to the quality of the actual combat mechanics and gameplay design. Borderlands 3 feels like the perfect evolution of the gameplay introduced in the past 3 games, with much smoother combat controls, more customizable options, and an impressive arsenal of weapons to play with. First, let's talk about the available Vault Hunters. Just like the past games, Borderlands 3 offers 4 different characters to choose from, each with their own unique skill abilities and benefits. Mose is a gunner, and her special ability revolves around her personal mech suit called Iron Bear. When activated, players can deal massive damage to enemies using either a railgun, a minigun, or a grenade launcher, all of which can be upgraded with skill points and mods to make them more effective. Amara is a siren, who can use her powers to slam enemies into the ground, grab them and hold them in place, or dash through them to deal massive damage. Flak is a robotic beastmaster, whose ability is built around giving orders to various pet creatures. While these animals themselves aren't that useful, each one also offers some passive benefits to the player, like increased health or increased speed. Flak can also turn invisible and can teleport his equipped pet directly into a group of enemies. And then there's Zane, the operative. Zane is a support character, with abilities that allow him to create decoys to distract enemies, shields to protect allies, and drones that will fly around and attack player-designated targets. While the gunplay itself handles pretty much the same between characters, these abilities do offer substantially different gameplay experiences, making it worth replaying the campaign several times just to experiment with different configurations of skills and abilities. Though unfortunately, for some reason, Borderlands 3 doesn't allow you to skip the opening cutscene, making starting a new character more of a hassle than it should be. There's a trick to getting around this, where players can create a new character when joining on a friend without having to sit through the tutorial, but Gearbox should patch in a way to skip any and all cutscenes, especially for players looking to jump right into the action. Speaking of which, let's talk about the reworked combat design. Borderlands 3 feels significantly smoother in terms of its combat. Players can now slide on the ground and down hills, mantle up onto surfaces, and slam back down like in the pre-sequel, making the action feel much more fluid and responsive overall. The weapons also feel much more powerful this time around, with more visible recoil and much smoother reload animations, all of which contribute to a more visceral feel. But the absolute biggest change to the combat is the insane increase to the number of available weapons. Borderlands 3 offers thousands upon thousands of different guns to use, all with unique combinations of weapon parts like magazines, scopes, triggers, ammunition types, and even a new alternate fire option that lets you swap between things like underbarrel shotguns or rate of fire. Some weapons even border on the absurd, with reloads causing the player to toss the weapon into the air, only for it to bounce off the walls and explode, or spin around in the air, spitting out bullets in every direction. It's these goofy, unexpected additions to each and every weapon that gives Borderlands 3 so much charm, and greatly encourages non-stop experimentation, rather than just comfortably using the same set of weapons for hours on end. Borderlands 3 also offers plenty of opportunities to use these weapons, with more varied enemies across the many different planets, along with much more challenging boss encounters. Vehicles have always been featured in Borderlands games in the past, but never really offered that deep of an experience. Borderlands 3 seems to address this a bit, and now offers a bit of customization, with players able to change out things like the armor plating, the weapons, tires, engine, and, of course, tweak the visual style and colors. To unlock more modifications, players will need to capture enemy vehicles, and then deliver them to vehicle spawn points, adding a bit of extra incentive to explore the map more. Though the actual driving in general still feels a bit floaty, and thanks to the improved fast travel system, it doesn't feel quite as necessary as it used to. Speaking of which, Borderlands 3 finally lets players fast travel without needing to manually access fast travel stations on the map, greatly speeding up the process and cutting down on needless back and forth traversal. The map menus are a bit clumsy, and for some reason you can't be in a vehicle when attempting to fast travel, but when it works, it does help avoid the awkward silent walk back after defeating bosses and large groups of enemies. And then of course, there's been improvements to the multiplayer design. The Borderlands games have always been built around cooperative play, and one of the biggest problems with the older titles is that the loot spawns were shared between all players. This made playing cooperatively incredibly frustrating, as one player could simply grab the valuable loot before the other players even knew where to look. Thankfully, Borderlands 3 offers a new mode of cooperative play that gives players their own individual loot. For those that prefer the older style, there's still a mode called Cooperation that functions the same way, though I personally don't see the benefit in returning to that style outside of nostalgia. In addition to this, players can also communicate with each other more easily thanks to a built-in ping system. They can customize their own personal Vault Hunter rooms on board the Sanctuary ship, and now have more reasons to explore the open world together, like new random legendary bosses and challenges. Borderlands 3 also offers plenty of endgame material, including new distinct dungeon crawling modes to challenge seasoned players, in addition to special endgame only upgrades, cosmetic unlocks, and of course, the ultimate Vault Hunter New Game Plus mode. There's a ton of content to enjoy here, and the refinements to the gameplay only make this content more appealing. Finally, let's talk about the overall presentation and level of polish. Borderlands 3 is a gorgeous looking game that perfects the series' iconic cel-shaded approach with incredibly detailed environments and more overall variety. Previous games in the series offered a bit of variety in terms of locales, but Borderlands 3's different planets really helped to push the series forward. Environments include massive neon cities, desolate swamps, and cliff-based monasteries, each offering unique stories and enemies to contend with. Character models also appear more detailed than in the past, and the visual effects in general feel like a noticeable step up. That being said, Borderlands 3 is also substantially more demanding in terms of performance. While AMD's Fidelity FX setting does help to improve performance a fair amount when running on my AMD-based build, the overall performance is still lower than I would have expected. Frame rates typically range anywhere from 50 to 90 FPS at the highest settings, with the larger, open-world sections often suffering a great deal. It's still plenty playable, and most of the time the game ran smoothly at 60 FPS or higher, but with the simplistic art style and lighting, it just seems odd that this game is struggling as much as it is. The game also seems to suffer from a number of annoying bugs and glitches. I occasionally found AI pathing to be off, causing them to walk into walls or get stuck in infinite loops. And I also found that the default controller joystick dead zone setting causes the character to slowly drift to the side. I even had my entire save get deleted due to the cloud service not properly syncing my data. It's unclear if this problem has been fixed at this point, but if you do pick up the game on PC, I definitely recommend backing up a copy of your save file and storing it locally just in case. There was a bunch of other less common issues as well, like the in-game menus not updating correctly when dropping items, or the heads-up display appearing invisible sometimes. but they're not quite as common or truly problematic, and it's possible many of these issues will be fixed in the near future. Overall, despite those issues, I still have greatly enjoyed my time with Borderlands 3. The visual design is gorgeous, and the deep level of customization and weapon arsenal makes the game incredibly addicting to play. Yes, the main antagonists aren't quite as memorable, and the game does suffer from a few technical issues, but the core experience is still one of the more enjoyable Borderlands experiences I've had so far, and I'm excited to explore more of the game with repeat playthroughs and future content down the road. But what do you guys think? Did Borderlands 3 meet your expectations? Let me know in the comments section. And if you want to learn more about Borderlands 3, be sure to check out my direct comparison I did last week to Borderlands 2. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.